Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. How are my people doing? I trust everybody is doing fine. Hey, my shirt. Something happened to my shirt as I ran into the studio and hit the wall, but we're getting that taken care of. Anyway, how are my peeps doing? Welcome aboard, all the folks on Substack. How are my Substack speak doing? Frandor, Len Gillespie, Denise Provencher, Bonnie Warren, Joyful Stitches, Haiti Frey, the old Hollywood newsletter, Jennifer Campbell, Deborah Toothmiss, some of them have scrolled off, Devin Nice, G. Brennan, Bernie Warren, Jose M. Moran, ¿Cómo están? How are my peeps doing? Great to have you here. In the chat, we have the person who brought up the chat today, AVQ, El Señor Michael Rodnin from, where again? From Brooklyn, New York. We also have second in the queue was Yvette Avery Herod. Where's Yvette from? Atlanta, Georgia. And in the house as well, we have Melanie Keelan, is from Barcelona, Spain. Folks on Substack, feel free to let me know what city, state you're in, and if it pops up on the screen, I'll go ahead and I'll call you out for your city and state. I love to kind of listen to that. Anyway, we're going to have a great show for you today. Let me make sure and get all the different channels that we have up and running. Para ver, todo está puesto perfectamente ahora. Anyway, folks, how are you doing? Before we get into the program, I think I remember I played the program for you guys a few days ago, where I pointed out that a MAGA caller called in and said, we don't believe in DEI. What we want is MEI, merit, excellence, intelligence. I said, okay, you want merit, excellence, and intelligence? You got your merit, excellence, and intelligence. But to have merit, excellence, and intelligence, we also need what again? DEI. Why? Because that is how you get that from diversity, equity, and inclusion allows that to be laid out. And Hedseth is a proof positive that if we don't have DEI, we cannot have MEI. Look at what he's done. Pat Neves is from Boston on Substack. Welcome aboard, Pat Neves. Anybody else want to tell me where you're from? Feel free to tell me where you're from. Where are all my peeps on the chat? We have a slow start. Where are all my peeps on the chat? I don't want to start our main video it's actually a cleaned up video from a very important post we did. Not post, but a very important monologue I did this morning on KPFT that I turned into a blog that I think we all need to listen to. So as more of our people join, I will go ahead and get started with that. Beforehand, Hegseth, it turns out that he is doing exactly as we expected him to do. But anyhow, what I'm going to go do and start with is the Mexican president and what's going on with NOM, the hypocrisy of our policy with the Mexican president. Let's go ahead and play that now, and then we'll take that on the other side. My good friend, she's not really my good friend. I don't know her, but I just love her spunk. And that is the president of Mexico. In measured ways, she knows how to handle Donald Trump. But there's something that is upsetting. Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, she places on Mexican TV ads calling the immigrants that are coming over here, just like Donald Trump came down those stairs and spoke about, calling them criminals and terrorists and rapists on Mexican TV to lie to Mexicans. So what did Fan Boyne do? And by the way, that kind of propaganda was illegal in Mexico until I think 2014. What did President Shamboyne do? She's putting out a law to take all those ads off of TV. But she's also making it clear that let's stop trying to make this a Mexican problem. And I want to take up that issue. I want to remind people, and specifically Republicans in this administration and every other administration, something that they really, really like to talk about: personal responsibility. We do have a problem with people using fentanyl and these bad drugs. Personal responsibility. And our economic system. Our economic system has an interesting thing. They like to call it supply side, right? Republicans like to talk about supply side economics, right? But it's BS. They believe if you put the supply there, the demand it will create. No. It's always demand side. If people demand something, there will be a capitalist, there will be a free enterpriser, there will be somebody who says, there is a market here. And that's what capitalists around the world sees. Americans love its drugs. Americans love its fentanyl. And a market was created for those drugs. It's illegal, but when has illegality ever stopped anything in this country? So therefore, a market was created for the fentanyl that Americans love. They love the feeling. The real question, as Fan Boyne would put, is why do so many Americans need the calming effects? Why do they need to be desensitized by taking these drugs? What within the American psyche, what harms them, what hurts their psyche so badly that they need these drugs? What is it that they need to calm themselves from these drugs? Whether it be fentanyl, whether it be alcohol. We are a very pharmaceutical type country. So that is where Donald Trump's emphasis should be. Go into Appalachia. Why are these people taking this fentanyl? And notice we attack all the others now that it's fentanyl, right? Why is it that Americans need all this drugs to calm their feelings? That is what we should be thinking about. An economic system that screws everybody over, that they work themselves to the bare bones. Maybe that's it. But then we try to blame the other countries for the drug problems that we have. The same thing. We killed 10,000 Panamanians because Manuel Antonio Noriega allowed his banks to be used to finance monies that got drugs into the United States that the American people wanted. So we killed Panamanians, 10,000 Panamanians, to get Noriega, who was facilitating the drugs American people wanted. Do you get it? Personal responsibility, where is it? I want us to start being honest with ourselves. Let's say that President Shamboyne decided that she was going to come on to American TV and run ads against AR-15s, against all these guns that get smuggled into Mexico, and that when they're smuggled into Mexico, kill a lot of Mexican politicians, a lot of Mexican peasants, a lot of Mexican avocado growers, a lot of Mexican farmers who are paying extortion to the cartel. Suppose she decided reciprocity means doing that in the United States, playing those commercials. All of MAGA would go bat you know what crazy. How dare a foreign country come into America with ads that affect our gun industry? Do you get it? Reciprocity, honesty, morality. Come on, folks. And that's the thing, right? Here we have our DHS secretary going and putting ads on Mexican TV calling immigrants rapists. And the thing about it is, they actually believe the crap that Donald Trump talks. In other words, Donald Trump knows he's talking crap about the prisoners being let out of Venezuela and the madhouses and the asylums just sending their people to the United States. Just open. Look, Trump knows he's lying. We know he's lying. but you go ahead and put a commercial, an ad on Mexican TV that actually goes out there and disparage the Mexican people, that is beyond the pale. And it's hypocritical because the people with the problem is really us. We are the ones with the problem. Michael says, Egberto, Trump's whole administration, who were chosen for high positions, shows that meritocracy is a myth. You're absolutely right. The right-wing bubble rebranding understates that you can't have MEI without DEI. And that's what I said in that post that I did, that piece that I did with that caller, the MAGA caller that called into my morning show. I pointed out that we are in agreement. He wanted MEI, and I said, absolutely, I want MEI too. But you can't have MEI without DEI. The predilection to MEI is DEI. Absolutely so. Welcome aboard, Terry John, Bonnie Warren, and Robin Morrison, Kate on Substack, Roy Bronner, Peggy Newfield, Ann Johnson. And I saw somebody said they were from Massachusetts. Let me see who that was. Another person called in and said, I am from Massachusetts. Bonnie says that's outrageous. Bonnie, you're absolutely correct that is in fact outrageous. And guess what? I just lost my feed on Substack, so I lost all those messages. So if you got a message to send it back again. All right. For anyone concerned about the fentanyl overdose epidemic that's killing 100,000 of our fellow citizens every year, you have to understand that border crackdowns and mass deportations will not solve the underlying problem. If you want to prevent overdoses, you have to consider that most of these overdoses were from addicts that either didn't know their drugs were spiked with fentanyl or they didn't understand the exact dosage. Fixing this problem requires regulation the same way we have food labels on legal drugs. The same way, and Michael Rudden is actually absolutely correct. Bonnie Warren says, MEI, last people in the world to be taking MEI with Hegseth still on board. Exactly. How can you talk about MEI when you have somebody like Hegseth serving as defensive? I mean, he looks like a joke. He looks unreal. He looks on serious. When you see him talking, he's like a kid. A kid excited. Hey, look, I killed a lot of people with those F-16s. I dispatched those It is a joke. America is becoming a joke, both with our economic policy, our defense policy, and the problem is somebody eventually is going to take advantage of it. And in fact, it's likely they are paying. They're planning right now. It's likely that they are planning right now. So let's be clear, people. Let's be very clear what's going on here. All right, Paul Fleming says, I am so happy that 99% of his administration is white. You can't blame it on people of color when you effed up this up, because that's what they're doing right now. It is amazing what they're doing. It is amazing. Paul Fleming says, breaking in a shocking comment, Pete Hegseth just said he will examine the promotion of fat people to leadership positions in the military and seek to stop them. He couldn't have said that. Paul. Send me a link or put a link in there that actually says he says that. That sounds like a makeup thing for me. If he actually said that, oh madre mia, por favor, then Donald Trump shouldn't be president, huh? Because he's the highest commander in chief, right? All right, let's see. Paul Fleming says, so far, Trump has fired federal workers who investigate firefighter deaths, rolled back a rule that would have protected minors from contracting black lung, planned to shut down 11 of OSHA's regional offices. Don't believe he's pro-worker posturing for a sec. He's not pro-worker at all. Not even close. Michael C. continually confuses anti-racism efforts to level the playing field with racism. Mike C. is the sort of person who is willfully blind, and you just mentioned the appropriate word, willfully blind. All right, Here is the piece. Good afternoon, Joe from Los Angeles, California. Mike Cisak from Missouri. Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia. And if I forgot anybody else in the chat, forgive me. Linda Asher just joined as well. Let's go ahead and play this is a main monologue that I gave this morning on KPFT. I cleaned it up and I labeled it a primer. And this is a primer that we all need to see. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side. There's a reality, and then there's a fantasy. And the problem that we have today is we don't have a media that is bold enough to call out politicians that just simply come out and lie. So let me tell you some absolute truths that you can actually go ahead and research on your own, because the data, the math is absolute. This isn't somebody just talking. The math is absolute. The economy rated by GDP always since the 20th century done better under Democrats than Republicans. That's number one. That's a statement of fact. The debt always gets better in the aggregate under Democrats than under Republicans. And that's not by accident. And that isn't, well, because it's an exception. No, it's a fact, but it goes based on ideology. The Republican ideology is that of cutting taxes and the claim of limited government and all of that sort of stuff. But the reality is that cutting taxes only work for rich people, and it's only a small percentage of Americans that are rich. So therefore, they cut these taxes for all these rich people, but at the same time, they cannot cut the programs to cover those tax cuts, because those programs cover the average middle class and lower class, working class and poor Americans. So they just leave those alone. They do nothing about it, but they get their taxes cut. So in effect, they have a fiscally irresponsible methodology. The Republican Party, the Republican politicians do. They have to be careful how they cut the programs, because it affects not just liberals and progressives and Democrats, it also affects their own. So they leave it standing. And by definition, that means if you're going to cut taxes, if you're going to give all your money to the defense industrial complex, and and you're not going to cut the social programs or the defense programs, then you get huge deficits. When Democrats come into town, they look at the books and they say, oh my God, the only way to pay this is using math. And math says you have to raise taxes to do X, Y, Z's, etc. And they raise taxes, and generally the budget gets better. The deficit gets lower. Obama lowered the deficits. Biden lowered the deficits. I mean, it's still high as hell, but he lowered it. Was less than it was before. It is important to understand why that is the exact opposite of what Donald Trump did in his first term. And what he's doing in the second time. He's spending more, all with Doge, with the Doge hype and firing all these people. Guess what, folks? They're still spending more money than under the Biden administration. So I want you to understand there are lies. And I want you to also understand that the media doesn't do enough to let Americans understand that they are being played with this thing about the Republicans are good for the economy, or that the Republicans are good for fiscal responsibility. All of those are just talking points, but lies. Go to all these different government agencies and find out that what I've just said is factual. So please, if you're a MAGA person listening and you have been taken up by the liberals are big spenders and liberals are fiscally responsible and the responsible ones are Republicans, etc., understand why Republicans are not responsible, because it's tax cuts, but they can't really do a lot of cutting to the social programs. Otherwise, they'll never get elected. They just blow the budget. Now, how does that tie into what Howard had to say with bonds? What that means is that we get a lot of people to buy bonds. And who buy bonds? Speaking in the aggregate now, rich people buy the government bonds, and also foreign countries park their money in United States bonds, because the United States always pays its bill, and that interest rates that you're getting on those bonds, you're guaranteed to get it. You know why? Because all of us as taxpayers, that's the first bill we pay. The taxes due on all the bonds that we sell to cover our deficits. The interest on the amount of money, the trillions of dollars that we owe, that other foreign countries own in bonds and our rich people own in bonds, as soon as we pay our taxes, we give away $1 trillion in interest to pay those rich folks and all those countries that have bonds. So let's give an example. China has about, let's just call it to estimate, let's just call it $900 billion in bonds. It's a little bit less. That means every single year we give China for that $900 billion about $30 billion in our taxes. We just write a check for $30 billion and give it to China. So much for hating China, so much for, controlling China. China don't give us any money for any loans, but we, because they're owning our debt, we give them $30 billion. And the same with Japan. Japan owned 1.0 something trillion in our debt. So we pay Japan every year 30 something billion and growing of our taxpayer dollars right off the top. That's $30 billion that can't go into healthcare. That's, but altogether, it's $1 trillion that we owe to all the countries that own U.S. treasuries, plus all the rich people in America that owns treasuries. That means own our debt. But I want to show you the evil within that way of doing business. In general, we won't cut social programs because we can't cut social programs because, again, they are required. Social Security is written, but Donald Trump is going to try using all kinds of tricks to screw us. The rich finance a lot of these folks. We always promise the rich these tax cuts. What that means is the following, folks, and I want you guys to understand how we as a people are conned by the wealthy. Every time we decide to lower taxes, that means the wealthy gets to keep more of the money that we worked for. Because remember, the wealthy gets their money from the excess labor that we provide. In other words, when you go ahead and buy all those goods that they import from China and they mark it up by 500%, the workers get a tiny little bit and they get most of the money from that markup on that product or on that service. They get most of the profit, the bonuses, all of that. Now, they don't want to pay the same tax rate that you do on that humongous amount of money that they make. So their benefactors, their politicians, the people they own, go ahead and they say, okay, we'll give you a tax cut so you don't have to pay the taxes. All right, that's one way the wealthy makes money. They get the tax cut. But here's the evil part. To get that tax cut, the politicians borrow the money to fund the government, to fund your military, to fund your Social Security, to fund your Medicaid, to fund your SNAP, to fund the roads, to fund all of that. To complete, they have to borrow money. And who do they borrow the money from? The rich people. So the rich people got a tax cut. They take that tax cut, loan it back to us, we the people, and then they tell us for loaning us that money, we have to give them interest every year. And that is that $1 trillion that we pay in interest every year. So they get money from the tax cut. They get monies from the borrowing that we do from them and having to pay them interest on that. But it gets even deeper because we as a society, their monies are generally owned in several financial instruments, either stocks or bonds. So we pay them to use the money which is really the tax cuts that we gave them. So they give us back that money as loans, and then we pay them from the honor of using that money. But it gets deeper. And then they convince their politicians that, by the way, those stocks that they own, when they decide to sell that stock, guess what? At that point, that stock doesn't get taxed at the same rate as your income, middle class folks. They pay a discount in taxes on the appreciation of the stock when they sell that stock. When you make your money from your wages, you pay the full amount in taxes, but they don't. So that's another way that they get over on us with that. Now, how is this stuff of selling bonds that Howard talked about create a further problem? If we have Japan, China, and these other countries selling bonds, that means that the price of that bond they're selling
false, right? Why? Because you're asking somebody to pay something that isn't matured yet. And the way the bond mechanism work, they're selling it because they see an issue with the country that owns the bonds. And what that means is to cover that bond. And since we need to borrow more money, because if they were just selling that bond, it would be fine. But they're selling that bond into a bond market that we, American people, are also borrowing money from. So anybody who wants to buy bonds, before they buy the new bonds that we're selling, they will go buy those bonds from Japan and China, American bonds from Japan and China, that Japan and China, to get them sold, have to sell at a discount, which means if it's earning 3% or whatever, they have to sell that bond at a discount to make that offer good to the people who want to buy it. And what that means, if we want to sell new bonds, new debt that's coming on board, we have to raise the price of interest more so than the bonds these guys are trying to unload. So therefore, if we have to pay, I think it went from like an average of like 3% to the last time we saw it was 4.4%. Every percentage increase in that bond makes the deficit much worse, because that means we have to give away that much more money for people to hold our debt. And who's ready for that higher interest rate? The rich people are going to say, come on, keep deficit spending. We'll buy those bonds at those higher interest rates. It makes it even a better deal. I speak about the con and rich people. Everybody talk about we shouldn't be supporting class warfare and all of that. Hell no, we should be supporting class warfare. Hell, that's why I wrote a book called As I See It. Class warfare is the only resort to right-wing doom. They tell us don't play class warfare, but they sure as hell are playing class warfare on us. That's why the farmer has to buy his seeds every year instead of using his own seeds, because when your field get genetically modified by the pollen flying in the air and Monsanto sues you, you are in deep caca. Everything in this country right now is made to support the wealth of the few. Folks, I need you to understand these things. You're not hearing this on mainstream media because these are corporate medias, and these are the systems that hold the rich, that hold those the way they are. Most Americans, they go to work every day. They have to pay the bills every day. They have to do all these things every day. So they don't have time to research all this stuff. They don't. And moreover, you have easy information coming from Fox News, lying to them day in, day out. You have marginal information coming from the mainstream media, not letting them understand the fraud that is our economic system, that you can't get ahead. The only way you get ahead is if you are invited into the system. And 10% of the people are invited into the system. 20% of the people are invited by that 10%, and the rest of you fight for the next paycheck. Everybody think we are a meritocracy. They're fighting DEI. Well, remember the caller who spoke about MEI, meritocracy, excellence, and intelligence? DEI is the only thing that guarantees meritocracy, intelligence, and excellence. Why? Pete Hegseth, that is what non-DEI does for you. You get people like Pete Hegseth in power. When you have DEI, everybody has to follow the same rules of excellence, of intellect, of intelligence to get in. It just means the door is open for everybody. In our economic system, the door isn't open for everybody. It is open for those who are invited. There are a whole lot of engineers that UT and A&M and Texas Southern and all these universities put out there. You have to be invited in to get in those good engineering jobs, whether you're good or bad. I remember when I got on NASA, saw the engineers, we all work together, we all sit down so we could all understand our different competencies. And when DEI isn't enforced, when these other signals aren't enforced, I can tell you categorically, the good old boy system is active and I've left NASA a long, long time ago, but The good old boy system is involved. The people that you're doing the work are the people that you think least. And then the people that are loafers out there are just who you think would be loafers. So let me tell you, folks, the system is rigged. It's not a meritocracy. It gives the impression that it's a meritocracy. Oh, if I work hard, I can do stuff. Look, you can open your pizza shop and do well. You can open a grocery store and do well, not get rich, do well. Some people may stumble into wealth. But let's look at what Donald Trump is doing with tariffs right now. The tariffs right now is going to help a lot of rich people. Even as they complain, they will never lose. But the mom and pop store in Timbuktu, South Dakota, that imports all those baskets that it decorates. I did an interview where we have this guy that anybody to listen to this guy would look at this guy and say, this is a good, solid Republican, but he owns a glass company. And this glass company used to make the glass here in the United States. For competitive reasons, he had to make the glass pieces in China, but he still employs a lot of Americans by saying, I am going to bring the labor into the United States. These glass bottles are glass containers, bottles that I can get for cheap, but I will make sure that the decorations and all the customization is done by high-skilled workers here in the United States. So he hires a lot of people in the United States. What is Trump's tariff going to do to him? He's also in a federation against these tariffs. What is this going to do to him? Prices from China has a 145% duty on it. He said, Egberto, I ordered my product 6 months ago. They're sitting on the docks. I have to pay 145% to bring those products in. What that means is the product that I sold for $15, I'm going to have to sell now for $25. What that means is less people are going to buy this product and I'm going to have to lay off American workers. So all of you MAGA folks that are looking at the genius of Trump, you know what I mean? The ignorance of Trump, really. These things affect people and it affects the small business person. It affects you, MAGA, more than anybody else. And you listen to all the rhetoric on Fox News and Newsmax and all these other places and have a fish hook in your nose as you follow these people. Brothers and sisters, come on, wake up and tell your congressman to do the right thing.
Absolutely tell your congressman to do the right thing. Okay, Michael Rudnin asked me to put this on the screen, but before I read it, just want to tell Steigen Bergen Greek says, well, it looks like my move to Canada has been delayed. My partner thought Z had a job, but it turns out it wasn't a firm offer. Z is looking now for something else, but sir's options look bleak right now because of Trump. So frustrating. I hear you. All right. Judge set 6 p.m. deadline for Trump administration to answer discovery in Abrego Garcia case. That is so good. Let's see what Trump does at this point in time. All right. This is from Robert Reich, placed in the chat via Paul Fleming and link provided by El Señor Rudnin. It says, America has had its share of presidents who were crooks, that is like Warren Harding and Richard Nixon, bigots like Andrew Jackson and James Buchanan, and incompetents like Andrew Johnson and George W. Bush. But here's the kicker. But never before, Donald Trump, have we had a president who combined all these qualities. It is so true. I sit down there and, here's the worst thing. When Donald Trump had, within his administration, in his first administration, some of the people that were hired were rank and file, traditional type Republicans. So we didn't get to understand the level of, and it's not even incompetence, the level of mental deviancy and mental incapacity that this guy represented. We never got to see that in full vogue. But it's in his second administration, because he has loaded his administration with a lot of people who did not pass through DEI and as such are not MEI, Ha ha ha. See what I'm using? In other words, his administration did not use diversity, equity, and inclusion such that he could, from that selection, been able to pull people that were meritorious with excellence and intelligence. He was unable to find those people. And henceforth, what we have for a presidency, unfortunately, is a crapshoot and a system that is actually destroying this country. For those of you, MAGA or otherwise, listening out there, if you have a 401k, a lot of MAGA don't have 401ks again. I mean, we're talking folks in Appalachia and all these places, the real ones that are completely fooled by this guy. Look at your 401k. For those that don't have your 401ks, go to Walmart's in 2 weeks and see what. Go price your eggs. Donald Trump looked in your eyes on Fox News and told you egg prices were down 87%. He told you that on Fox News. And I heard many of you quoted that to me. Donald Trump, you see, dropped egg prices back. No, egg still at $6 or $7 a dozen in most parts of the United States at this point in time. So folks, don't buy the hype. Buy the truth. And the primer that I just put out there for how the wealthy use bonds, taxes, etc. Please share it. I'm writing a comprehensive blog on that video that I just made. I'm editing that blog that I'm writing for it right now, and I'm going to send it out as a newsletter. So if you're signed up for my newsletter, you will automatically get that newsletter today. And I want you to read it. It goes a bit deeper than the verbiage that I gave. Well, actually, it's about the same, just covers a few other things as well. Very important. But please remember, as we put these newsletters out, don't only just read them and look at the videos. Please share them. Remember, we have a derelict mainstream media, or in the case of right-wing media, we have a indoctrinative right-wing media. We are the only ones who can solve that problem. And how do you do that? Share our videos, share our newsletters. It's so important for this information to get out there. Very important. And if you are on if you are on YouTube right now, share it, like it, do all that stuff. What is it? I think give it a thumbs up. If you are on our Facebook Live, give us a like. If you are on our Twitter, go ahead and share it as well as love it, because we need to get this information out. Now, here is another important piece I have for you. This morning, a MAGA caller called in, and I actually enjoyed this conversation, although he really didn't want to stop talking, but I enjoyed it because he illustrated absolutely everything that is wrong with those who follow the MAGA methodology. It's not that they're bad people. It's that they are so ill-informed and they know so little about anything outside MAGA land. They know so little about the rest of the world. They know so little about the rest of America. And that, I find that so sad. And when I say I find that very sad, this is not a sadness, this is not a hate for these people. This is not any of that. This is just really, I don't want to say pity, but to be locked into that frame of mind, it must be difficult. And I can see being locked up in that frame, why they're so scared, why they are so fragile, why everything for them is somebody trying to get, But I want you to listen to the conversation now, and then we'll take it on the other side. Here it is. Let's go to Martin, line number 5.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Martin. How are you doing?
Pretty good, thank you. Yourself. There's an abundance of programs agreeing and disagreeing with what you're saying. I think that first of all, in short, in a nutshell, I think that there are many corporations that we all know of, that we've heard of over the years, multi-billion-dollar corporations, Fortune 500 corporations that do not pay their fair share of taxes. However, having said that, there is a majority of so-called quote-unquote wealthy, rich folks, billionaires, zillionaires, whatever you want to call them, that without their tax money going into the coffers, we wouldn't have a bone to eat this morning for breakfast. The people that you're talking about, the rich folks that are getting the advantage, yes, there are rich folks that are getting some advantage. Money makes money. Rich get rich, the poor get poor. It's always been the case. It always was, and it always will be. There's no disputing that. There's no arguing that. That's hands off the table. That's old news. It's always going to be that way until we find out a different economic system for the world to exist by, and that's called communism or socialism. If that's what you're advocating, and I don't know that it is, but that's the only alternative that we have to what you're talking about. Now, however, number two, when there was an article the other day about the taxes that illegals pay. They work and they pay taxes and they have illegal Social Security numbers because they have to have thousands and thousands of, they don't get Social Security numbers on their own, so they have to get them from somewhere. So they get them and they do pay their taxes. However, what we fail to consider is this. Do we want, and this is the crux of my question, we hear about the fact that these illegals are paying taxes and not getting their fair share. These are good people. A majority of the people coming over the border are good people that want a better life. Some are coming over because they've been abused in their country, so much abused that they have to get out. Now, is that America's problem to solve the greed, the graft, and the corruption? We have our own. We have our own crime. We have our own greed. We have our own. We cannot police the world. We're trying to. We have tried to. The argument is the United States is supposed to cure the ills of the rest of the world. Mexico, we're supposed to take care of the Mexican cartels. We're supposed to take care of Somalia. We're supposed to take care of Africa, what's happening over there. The Taliban, we were supposed to take care for 20 years of Afghanistan. We're supposed to take care. Donald Trump, love him or hate him, MAGA, whatever you want to talk about. We don't want to go back to 4 years ago where the Homeland Security guy, Mallorca, is telling us, gaslighting the American people. Who is he trying to get to believe that hundreds of times he has said the southern border is closed? It's closed. I cannot tell you, I pulled my hair out the number of times I have heard that moron say the southern border is closed. Closed to what? Closed to who? You juxtaposition that against the fact that when he's saying that, you see thousands of people coming across the river. At the same time, he's saying the border's closed. Closed to who? Closed to what? Who's he trying to gaslight?
Okay, I think I get your whole picture, Martin.
Okay,
I think I got your.
We don't want to go back to 15 million people. We don't know many of the hundreds of.
Let me answer, Martin. Let me answer. This is important.
4 years ago.
Martin, can you hear me or not?
Yes.
Okay, now let me answer the questions one at a time. Notice that I allowed you to speak without interruption. Now allow me to answer your questions. First of all, the first part of your commentary, you spoke against what you said. Here's the deal. You spoke about corporations that, yes, they're bad corporations and their greed, etc. You also said that unless the system changes, that's how it's always going to be. And you're correct. That's how it's always going to be until the system changes, until we change the paradigm. Your response, which is an indoctrinative response given by the people who are taking advantage of us right now, wants you to believe that the only answer to making the system correctly fairer is to institute communism. So everybody gets scared. Oh my God, we either take this nasty type of system or we take communism. That's a false choice. It is a false choice that we have killed a lot of people to maintain. The reason we have attacked many countries that have tried to adapt a more equitable system is because if Americans saw an equitable system in action, they would ask, why don't we ourselves do that? You should ask yourself questions like, why is all the wealth from the minerals on federal lands going into the coffers of a few and not the many when it's on federal lands owned by all of us? So as far as the economic system is concerned, I will tell you respectfully, we as a country, as a people, have been indoctrinated into believing that the opposite of capitalism is communism, which is a statement of a fallacy. China is the biggest, most successful capitalist country in the world. Okay. And that's a communist country. America is the biggest successful capitalist country in the world. And while we have the implication that it's a democracy, it is far from a democracy. Just look at the Senate. It is not a democracy. Let's go further. You also spoke about the traffic. You don't want to see whether the world's problems are America's problems. Why let's take care of America. Again, this comes from us not understanding international policies instituted by our own country. The world's problems are in fact America's problems because many of the world's problems were created by our American expansionism. If we learned more in school about what America did in Chile, Argentina, Santo Domingo, Cuba, Panama, Nicaragua, and you may think, oh, they always did good things. That's what you heard. But let me tell you, we have been an extractive country throughout the world. Extractive throughout the world. That you don't know that, it's okay. After you've learned that, if you keep your same form of thinking, that's a problem. And what I'm doing here at Politics Done Right is not giving you what you hear at Fox News or not giving you what you hear on mainstream media. It's just simply telling you the truth and then asking you not to take my word, but to look it up. It's readily available for all to see. Everything that I stated in the monologue that Howard generated, everything that I said is accurate, factual, and can be, if one wants to do the research that I've done all my life, you can actually find out if I'm lying, if I'm propagandizing or not. The fact of the matter, I'm not. You look at what we did with the rice, the rice rules under Clinton. We got the Haiti boat. We got the Haiti issues. We can talk. We can show American involvement in much of the migration that is occurring right from south to Venezuela, from south to Costa Rica, from south to Haiti. All of that has an American component. The problem is our news media won't tell you that. And when these people start to come in, you're like, oh, we need to get them out. Well, let's talk a little bit about that as well. Getting them out. Let's remember that they are coming here because there is a demand. Like I said, it's never a supply side thing. It's a demand. And we have a demand for workers of this caliber, and that's what they represent. They don't come here and take. They are a net positive to the economy, as most Americans are going to find out when they go to the grocery stores and find the prices have risen, not only because of tariff, but because of the lack of labor to get the things that need to be done that you are accustomed to getting at an economical price. So, Martin, we can't continue the conversation with you today, but we can call back and I can answer you definitively one at a time. What I am saying, my brother, is absolutely right. What you're saying, the narrative that you gave, sir, was a narrative I could pick off of Fox News and tell you that that narrative is absolutely false.
No doubt. An absolutely false narrative. But it's a plausible narrative that they've learned from Fox News, that they've learned from the Heritage Foundation, that they've learned from the Cato Institutes, organizations designed to put lies in a plausible narrative. But you know what? The good thing about it is we live through reality, and you have the choice to find out what is the genesis of the reality you are living. And the problem right now, as I mentioned in the earlier monologue, people are busy. a lot of people don't have the time. And we don't get the penetration. If you are locked into watching Fox News, and if you are locked into your feed in Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and Instagram, if your feed is locked into a modal that gives you only right-wing information, you'll never see my TikTok pops up. So what I do is I put some right-wing hooks in my TikToks, in my Instagrams, in my Facebook short, not Facebook, but YouTube shorts, so that at least some of you get a crack at seeing what we put out to enlighten you. So all of this stuff that we do here live, all this stuff that we do around the town, we put it as well on TikTok, Instagram, Telegram, and all these other places with the expectation of flooding the zone so that we can crack some of what Fox News has done to its people. Fox News has corrupted America, and the mainstream media has been derelict. Look at what CBS is doing now. CBS, because they want to sell their entertainment business, they're now kowtowing to Donald Trump. Now the 60 Minutes producer has left. Bonnie Warren says also there is money cost to getting correct information. That is true. Over the last 40 years, you're right about that, Bonnie. I mean, look, here's the deal. I give the truth out for free. I distill a whole lot of information for free. I do ask people to become paid subscribers of our newsletter, because when you do that, you're helping to subsidize us being able to send it out to people that need the information. So, but yeah, look, let me tell you a little secret, right? Not a secret, just my way of operation. I'm one of those channels that I have all my channels. I try to monetize all my channels. But in the process, I give away, everything goes out, right? Because I sit down there every time I'm right. If you take a look at my newsletters now, you'll see the beginning, the header, the summary, and then you'll see it says, it'll say premium content. And the premium content used to be for those who were subscribers only. I mean, paid subscribers only. And then, I woke up sort of perturbed one day, and I said, that's not the goal of Politics Done Right. The goal of Politics Done Right is I want everybody, that thing that I was calling premium content, I wanted everybody to see it, because that's how we inform, that's how we teach, that's how we make sure they read it. So I just label it premium content, but everybody gets it. What I do is my books on Substack. You get a chance to read all of my books, both my previous books and the new books that I'm writing. You get a chance to read it on Substack for the paid subscribers. That's a como se llama? That is a like a gimmick to say, folks, not a gimmick. All those books that you see on the screen right now, paid subscribers get to read all those books on Substack. So that is the reason, I try to find a way that we can support ourselves. At the same time, I want this information going to everybody. So it's a hard balance to figure out how the hell you do. You're not funded by the plutocracy. You're not funded by the liberal organizations, because again, many of the neoliberal guys, they don't want you to know all this stuff. That monologue that I give about bonds and rich people and the way our tax systems work, they don't want you to know that, because you think Hakeem Jeffries is going to talk about getting rid of the way we handle capital gains. Before I close, I want to give you a little secret. That really perturbs me. If you have a stock and your stock appreciates, let's say you have a stock you bought for $100. And that stock turns into $10,000. And you just keep holding that stock, and there's a good chance that stock is going to remain at $10,000, right? You don't pay any taxes on your newfound wealth. But here's what you can do. You can go ahead and borrow money, use your stock as a collateral, and spend at will, tax-free. I mean, you think about these things. Who gets to do that? Rich people. You have stocks. You don't want to pay tax on the appreciation, so you just borrow money. You borrow the money, and the collateral is the stock, and you never pay the loan back until the bank says, "Okay, it's going down," and then the bank takes the stock. Look, the mechanisms that are there for the wealthy to get wealthy, and to have a whole bunch of poor people, a whole bunch of MAGA folks defending the policies that these guys use to screw them. That's the reason I call that policy a primer. I didn't put that segment in there, but I should as well. The mechanisms that are there to screw you over, not for them to pay their fair share in taxes, even as the money that they've created and raised was on your backs. You know, it is an interesting thing, folks. But anyway, I got to get out of here. I want to ask you guys to please support the program. And the way to support the program, let me go ahead and pull this thing up. You know, I always forget to pull the link up so I can have it ready and fired, ready to go. All right, I want to ask you so kindly, support our Substack, become a paid subscriber. It is really inexpensive, and you allow us to do all the work that needs to be done. It's not just the newsletter, it's the books, it's the Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Short, it's all these places where we make sure all this information is out there, and that we can help seed the internet with truth, data. And you know, we convince some. I get the emails. We do convince many, but we need to stay supported. So if you have the wherewithal to do so, my dear brothers and sisters, please support the program. Go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, and support us however you can. Of course, we also have a Patreon and many other ways of support that you can choose from. I'm going to put that link in and then repeat the newsletter link. The link, politicsdoneright.com/support, has a whole lot of different ways you can support us. But the preferred way that I ask is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Support our newsletter. We need to get to a certain level so that we can start getting some support. Right now, 16 hours a day is killing us 7 days a week. Killing me 7 days a week. So anyhow, folks, love you all. Got to get out of here. Thank you for being here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.